evening, everyone. Thank you for coming out and joining us this evening. We are coming to you live from South Florida, where we are at a 53 degrees, which is uncommon for us. So thank you so much for joining us. This evening, we're going to spend about 60 to 75 minutes together, and this webinar is all about publishing your passion to profit. My name is Dr. Vera, and I'm an award-winning best-selling author. And I would like to introduce you briefly to our team that you're going to be meeting this evening. So joining me on this call this evening is Alejandra Vicente, who's a best-selling author and an elite literary agent. Nisi Johnson, who is a screenwriter, producer, and also an elite literary agent. Nancy Beer, who's a multiple best-selling author and literary agent. And Wendy Elliott, a multiple best-selling author and an elite literary agent. And this evening we have a special bonus and a guest who has been a multi-best-selling author with Elite Publishing and also self-published, and the founder of Real Champions League Speakers Bureau, Grace Holden. So if you want to take a second and just put in the chat your name and where you're from and where you're joining us and just say hello, I would love that so that we can get started on time. We're very mindful of time, and so we want to make sure that we give everybody an opportunity to make this as interactive as possible. So you've joined Elite Foundation, and Elite Foundation is a 501c3 non-governmental organization, and we're dedicated to empowering survivors of human exploitation and trafficking to become leaders of tomorrow. And the reason why this is so unique is because most publishing houses are not non-for-profit. And you're going to find out through these next few minutes together how that translates as a benefit to you all. So I would ask that you would just take a few minutes, and if you could just clear the deck, you know, take away some of the technology, some of the distractions that we are all dealing with so much more today than we have probably ever. And set aside some time and some intentionality for this time together, because I think that you're going to really benefit if you can focus and take away the nuggets of gold that we're going to be sharing with you quite quickly. But we're going to be offering quite a number of ways for you to recap, and don't worry about taking notes. You're going to get the PowerPoint. You're also going to get a couple of other toolkits that are going to help you to be able to implement when we complete this webinar together. So you're in the right place if you've been dreaming about becoming a published author, and if you're ready to take action to publish your book, but the right way to become a bestseller. You also are in the right place if you want to stand out in the crowd, and if you're really ready to experience success. As I mentioned, my name is Dr. Jessica Vera, and what you need to know about me is that I'm a human sexual exploitation survivor leader with a learning disability. So when I was very young, I was diagnosed with dyslexia. And I was basically told that because of this learning disability, the probability that I would do very well in writing and reading was very slim. I grew up with that mindset of being told I had limits. And I did not learn how to read proficiently until I was almost in middle school. So to think that one day I was going to not only author, but publish with some of the most renowned, prolific writers in our generation was not even fathomable for me at that age. But what happened was in my early 20s, not only did I go into higher academics, but I also became a serial entrepreneur, and I love building businesses. And in my early 20s, I built 3 very successful multi-million-dollar for-profit organizations. And then I went on to write and become an award-winning international bestseller. I was inducted into the Bestseller Hall of Fame. So tonight, I want to share with you 5 really, really simple steps to ensuring your success when you are ready to write. And the first step in this 5-step process is called the power of an idea. You know, one of the most difficult mind blocks for writers, and I speak of myself in this regard as well, is refining a content base that can be so broad into a narrow idea that is that million-dollar idea that you need in order to set yourself apart. And so step 1 is getting clarity. So when I started this writing journey, one of my favorite writers in the whole wide world was Jack Canfield. When I went into my higher ed studies, I really came upon his work, and I'm sure you're familiar, and if you're not, it's the Chicken Soup for the Soul series that sold over, 100 million copies worldwide, and I don't know how many languages. He was one of the people that I really admired in the work that he was doing. And I got a very clear idea one day in a dream that I not only was going to overcome my obstacle of dyslexia, but that I was actually going to write with this man because I knew that it could be done. And so I went on a quest to become involved with as many collaborative indie publishing programs that were out there, and to make an investment in myself so that I could take away and learn the best strategies that would bring success to anyone who was with a dream to wanting to write their story and to publish it the right way. And so in 2017, I took that dream and I realized it, and I published In the Big Secret. It went on to become a international bestseller. I got to meet Jack Canfield because of it. And that brings me to step number 2 of the success pathway. And that is that power of visualization, right? You have to really place that image of where you want your mind to go in order for it to lead you there. And so, as I mentioned, despite all the obstacles, I had a dream. And my dream was that I was not only going to publish, but that I was going to meet this icon that I had been following. And he was like a virtual mentor for me because I had never really met him. But I had it in my mind's eye that I was going to meet him one day and that I was going to work with him. So visualization is extremely powerful. I'm trained in psychology, and I've been working with people for the last 30 years of my career. And I can tell you that the ability of the mind to go where you lead it through imagery is very, very powerful. So when we are in the art of writing, you are basically putting words to an image. And so when you start this process, this second step is very, very important. Being able to visualize where you want to lead yourself. So in 2018, where it led me was to a Quilly Award and an induction into the National Academy of Best-Selling Authors. And like I said, it was something that I had dreamt about for a very long time, and it became very tangibly real. But that wasn't really the ultimate goal. And which brings me into step number 3. Once you've been able to visualize where you want to be led, then it becomes, what is the mindset that you're going to allow to empower and fuel that vision? And for me, the power of positivity is very, very important. The mind is wired to default to negativity naturally. So in order for you to be able to stay in the positive, you have to be very intentional. And at that time in my life, I was in the midst of a lot of chaos. There had been that trauma. Remember that I am a survivor. So there had been this trauma that I had been carrying for many, many, many years. And I had not realized how to compartmentalize and how to resolve it for myself. But through the power of positivity, I was truly able to, battle my demons and to be able to set my mind to the things that I wanted to do in order to make an impact. And the best way to help yourself is typically to help others, right? And so I took all of that energy from the content of the chapters that I had written with Jack Canfield, and it became the fundamentals of what would become Elite Foundation. I got to meet him, I got to pick his brain, I had interviews with him, and I was able to really understand his mindset of success. And they say, right, success leads to success. You always want a mentor that you can mimic and that you can follow, who can guide you towards realizing the dreams that you might have. And so for me, he definitely was pretty significant. What Elite Foundation has done is, as a nonprofit, we have a vision, and our vision is to co-create a future for everybody that we come in contact with. And so the same way that I was able to realize a dream, we all assumed that the vision of the organization was to build an indie publisher with the best success strategies out in the marketplace and to make it affordable and accessible because we were a nonprofit. But at the same time, to take those resources and give back to the community in a way to fund freedom. And that the second benefit to the writer was that we were able to build platforms and we were able to launch successful authors and books. In the last 4 years, we have launched a series of international best-selling books that have not only hit bestseller lists on Amazon and KDP, but worldwide distributors. And we have taken 76 authors and we have launched all of their platforms with the accolade of being bestsellers on the day of launch, and then have taught them how to not only write their books, but position themselves for success. One thing that is really important for all of you to understand is that we understand that you have a story and that it matters to you. But what we teach at Elite Publisher is how to take your story, and we ensure that it doesn't just matter to you, but it matters to your audience. Because we know that the truth is that 81% of people who have a story within them believe that their story is important, it's going to make an impact, and it's significant. But unfortunately, because of the demons and the blocks of writing that are very natural, only 3% actually ever attempt to write their story and then go on to write a manuscript, which is a little different than just writing down your story on paper. And of those, only 5% ever complete this process. And of the 5%, only 20% ever publish successfully. Those numbers were just not sitting well with us. So at Elite, we brought a team together and we started strategizing for solutions. And so we have an amazing toolkit that will allow you to go from concept to paper, ready to publish in 90 days or less. But the most important step, if I was to really hone in on it, is step number 4. And that is the power of clarity. And it's sometimes difficult to see the tree in the forest, right? And the way to gain that clarity of that focus on that one tree is to have a community and to have accountability partners that can help you to tease out your ideas and your concepts into something that is uniquely your own, related to your story, that provides a direct pathway to your own success. And so that is built in to our Elite Publishing toolkits. There are top 3 mistakes that most writers who are aspiring to be authors make, and that is that they think of their book like a business card, something that you give to someone that eventually, unfortunately, we may end up in the trash. Or they think of their book as the end of the relationship, or they think of their book as a single product. We have a very different mindset when it comes to publishing, and you're going to learn a little bit more as you hold on with me. So, one of the most important aspects of publishing with Elite Publisher is that we at our cornerstone have the belief that we are here to inspire and to empower others, and that we instill hope. So we know that everybody who signed up for this call, and we know that there's several of you, that you are already an author. You just need the blueprint. You need the process and play. And you also need those of us to come alongside you to be able to keep you on path and accountable so that you can achieve your goal. We know that we already believe in you because you're here and you believe in yourself, and that's half the battle. And we also know that sometime in the past, there was a seed planted in you that there was a story that needed to be written. And you know that you're supposed to be writing this story. And that no matter what obstacles, whether it be a mind block or distraction or a complete, inability to come up with ideas, which happens, right? That we have the way to ensure that you go from concept to paper to publish, and we start together and we end together. No one is ever left behind. The principal block that is totally universal across all of humanity, whether it's writing or any other achievable goal, is the universal emotion of pain. And so pain can only be overcome with courage and fortitude and accountability and very specific tools in order to be able to get to the other side. And that are some of the main characteristics of our toolkit. The last step that I want to share with you in this 5 simple steps of success is the power of resiliency. If you're not familiar with what resiliency is, it's real simple. It's basically you get knocked down, as we all have this year, and it's the ability to bounce back, but bounce back stronger because of the experience. One of the things that I learned through this last 25 years of my writing experience is that sometimes you go down a path of a particular concept in writing and other people just don't care for it. And that was in the traditional publishing arena. and you just can't find the right audience. Now, that could be, you know, an extremely negative experience and could deter you from ever writing again. But it's that belief and that clarity and that positivity and all the other steps that I mentioned that give you the fortitude to push through and to be able to recognize that this is part of your purpose and it's part of your passion and it is what you're intended to do, so that you're going to find the way to get it done. I'm going to take a minute to just kind of pause and tell you a few of the things that we have built into tonight's webinar that I want you to really take heed of and take advantage of. One of them is that at the end of this webinar, we're going to be giving a survey, and we would love that you complete this survey, because it's really important to us that we're not only sharing our knowledge, but that it's actually having an impact. By completing the survey, we are going to give you access to our entire indie publishing toolkit, which is 23 modular digital modules of classes that will take you from concept to paper to published on your own. And it will show you exactly what you need to do from A to B to Z in order to publish your bestseller. And if you take our survey at the end of this webinar, we're going to give you a special coupon that will allow you to get access to that course for $1. Now that is retailed typically at $297. So I think it's a pretty great give, right? To listen to the wisdom that we want to share and our experiences through indie publishing, so that you really can come off this call with the toolkit that you need. So would you join me in welcoming one of our international best-selling authors of our recently released book called Overcomer. I'd like to introduce you all to Alejandra Vicente.
Thank you, Jessica. I fall in love each and every time I hear your story. Can you all hear me fine? Perfect. But I do want to share a little bit of my story because I could not be more thankful for everything that has happened and that is keep happening and that is happening. I have right here the proof of someone just like yourself can get it done. Coming from the restaurant business with two daughters, a 9-year-old and a 19-year-old, my dream has always been to help others, you know, and honestly, this opportunity knocked on my door, and it has been the best thing that had ever happened to me. I'm able to do this at a full time because I was able to write my story, one of the many to come. And just like yourself, I was just somebody that had a story, that wanted to write it down, and I'm able to do it with helping other people. Now I'm a life coach going through the University of Miami to get my certificate because I'm willing to do whatever it takes to help others. And this is one that got me started, and I'm willing to do whatever it takes. And I just want to thank the team for being there, for being such a family for me, you know, for holding my hand. Don't let anything stop you, because I thought that my language, oh, I speak Spanish, I don't speak English, how am I going to do this? No, don't let anything stop you. Just the same way that they helped me, they're going to be able to help you and walk you all the way to the end. Thank you, Jessica. I love you guys, and I'm so excited to be here. And I can't tell you enough how you have to do this. It will be the best thing that you do for your future. I'm looking forward to hearing from you and to answer all of your questions. I'm going to pass it down to one of the multi-bestsellers, Wendy Elliott. All yours, Wendy.
Thank you, Alejandra. What an amazing testimony. And it just shows that, you know, anyone can do this. So what I'm going to talk to you about now is we're going to move into a little bit more of the logistics of how traditional publishing works. And, you know, there's multiple ways these days that people can publish. We're hearing more about the indie publishing component, and, you know, anybody can go on Amazon and publish their own book and, you know, and make an effort to do that. But do you really have the skills and ability to be able to know what to do? You know, as Jessica said, we have the ability to show you how to do that and to do your own type of program, but, you know, it's really not as easy as it seems to get where you want to be, which is a bestseller. So if we look at the traditional versus the self-publishing versus what Elite Publisher does for you, you know, there's different categories that we can talk about here. And just to kind of pinpoint a few of them. I'm not going to read the entire thing because, you know, as Jess said, we'll give you the power, but you can see the differences. In traditional publishing, you have to find a publisher. You have to spend a lot of time with them. They have to accept your manuscript, which is usually already completed to the most part. They'll do a lot of edits for it. They'll spend a lot of time. You'll spend a lot of money going into those publishers who are going to do rewrites and going to like take it on and on and on for a long period of time. And there's no guarantee that what your story is going to be picked up by anything. There are methods that you can do. You can spend a lot of money and buy thousands of books to be able to get yourself on the top bestseller list. But traditionally, who has, you know, $250,000 to be able to spend on writing your book? So the biggest differences that we're looking at here is, you know, the owner's rights for your story. You know, with traditional publishing, the publishing company typically owns everything that you do. You sell your life away to them when you write your story. And they're the only ones that can publish it. They're the only ones that can market it out there. When you do it yourself, you own it, obviously. And with a lead publisher, you own the intellectual property. So we have a very specific method to where your story is yours and it's always going to be yours. And we're going to package it in a way that you're going to be able to have that forever and ever. The time to market, again, with traditional publishing, it takes quite a few months, if not years. We can get you there in 90 days. You know, with our program, you know, we start out now, we're going to publish in June, but basically the hard work starts about 90 days before we go to publishing. And we'll walk you through that and be able to help you and manage you and coach you all the way through that. The biggest part of this is the royalties. So with traditional publishing, you only get about 10 to 15% of any royalties that come off of that book, if it even gets published and if it even gets into, you know, the brand name stores and now who even shops in the stores. So if yourself, you know, I mean, you get about 40% of the royalties with your physical book and about 70% of the ebook. With Elite Foundation, you get 75 to 85% of any royalties, because we'll show you how to do that on your own website with your own books and be able to market yourself that. Some of the other components that typically the traditional publishing doesn't do is we are able to coach you and hold you accountable so that we make sure that your commitment is fulfilled. I think as Dr. J said, you know, in the beginning, only 3% of people actually end up publishing. Everybody has a vision and they want to publish a book and they want to have that thing. I have such a story within me, but only 3% actually get to that. So we're going to make sure that we're going to hold you accountable once you start this program, and it's going to actually happen because we'll make sure of that. You know, and you can see some of the other things, you know, as we move towards the bottom. There's very minimal marketing. We will show you how to market your book and how to create sales from not just selling your book, but other things that I'll talk about in a few minutes. So let's go into the next slide. So right now, what I want to be able to tell you is, you know, our collaborative book program is only $3,000. Now that's a year of work with us because, again, like I said, we start today. We're actually going to be spending a lot of time with you in the future, and our publishing goes into the spring of next year. But we have a very special offer for you right now. The one thing that I want you to remember, and Dr. J talked about this a little bit, that everything that you spend, because we are a nonprofit foundation, is tax deductible to you. You know, so that is not usually the case with any other publisher, unless you have a business or unless you have some other big structure. So for us, because everything that you're doing is non-tangible, it's not a hard object, all the money that you invest is going to be tax deductible. But again, like I said, we have a very special prize for you today. So if you are the first person to sign up tonight, we're going to give you a very special offer, which is going to be a $250 discount on our price today only, before the end of the seminar. So go ahead if you're interested. You know, we have obviously the literary agents on the side here that you've met already, and so it's tax deductible. Go ahead and do it. You have 10 months. We have a payment plan, and so that is incredible too. So just for a few $100s a month, you're going to be able to complete your story, get it published. We've never missed getting bestseller yet. So you're going to be a best-selling author by the spring of next year. So go ahead, enroll now. I mean, you've got the literary agents right now. They can walk you through everything. So let them know right now, $250 off, and we're good to go. So I want to talk a little bit more in depth about why the Elite Book Program is different than traditional publishing, or, if you just want to do it yourself. So we want you to become a published author with ease, to make sure that your story is being easily told and that you feel that your unique story is out there and what best position you're in to be able to tell that. We all know that our experiences are valued by a lot of different people. What we have to offer is like gold to some people. Sometimes we have self-doubt. Sometimes we're like, well, who would want to know our story? I was the same way. When Jessica approached me and said, we're going to write a book together, I'm like, no one wants to know what I know. I mean, everybody's like, got their own stuff going on. They don't need to know what happened to me. But in fact, people have been empowered by listening to my story and by knowing what I went through and where I am today. It really helps. So we're going to help you get the best story out there that you have to give so that other people look at you as that expert. We have a track record, of all the authors that, we've been able to publish, which I think we said about 75 authors right now, pretty much. Well, no, I can say without a doubt, every single one of the books that we've published have hit bestseller in almost all categories that we put it in, not just one category, sometimes up to 7 categories. So we have a proven track record across multiple categories. When we launch the book, it becomes a bestseller. So we can do that for you as well. We want you to connect in your community. We know that they're like-minded people. And like I said, I didn't think that I had anything that anybody wanted to learn from or that anybody wanted to know. And who was I? I wasn't that special. But believe me, once you get your story out there and once people start reading it, they're going to come to you and say, how did you deal with this? And how did that happen? And not just, this is a collaborative book, like we said, but you have a longer story in there too. So this could just be the stepping stone to something even bigger. Right now you'll co-create a masterpiece, but think about where that can take you in the future. We've had multiple authors that have started out in our collaborative book program because they weren't quite sure that they had it in them to do a book, and they're now authors of their own books. So we have, propelled them into being writers and loving what they're doing, and then taking that and showing others that this is positioning them as an expert in their field. They have a niche. We've worked with financial planners, we've worked with realtors, we've worked with coaches, like Alejandra said. We worked with speakers like Grace and Nancy, who's also a coach, and they've been able to show that this is their calling card, this is their niche, and they are now an expert because they're bestsellers in this category. We want to expand your audience. So as you work on a collaborative book, you're not only selling to the people that you're also selling to the folks that are friends of the other authors in the book. So, if we have 25 authors in the book, then that's the expansion of the friends that they have, because they're not only, they're buying the book and they're looking at the book because they know someone that's written in it, but now they've got 24 other stories that they're going to learn from, and your information is going to be in there, and it's going to expand, your audience to be able to do that. And we have a community of writers that are going to be able to elaborate and to collectively support you in that through all of our Facebook pages and all of our social media component. And it's going to be able to create your legacy for generations to come. I mean, just imagine, like Alejandra did, pull that book off the shelf and say, hey, this is mine. This is going to be there forever. And so it's not just like a business card, as Jessica said, you just throw in the trash and you never think about it again. It's a book. It's going to be on someone's bookshelf. And it's going to be able to increase your influence and impact your unique story for others. And so synergetically, you're going to be able to supercharge and create that quantum leap that you've been dreaming about in your life and in your business, creating the credibility second to none. I mean, you have a book, you're a published best-selling author. So there's 3 key strategies for your success. What you need to think about it is not just a book that you write and you set it on your shelf. This is an ability for you to have a 6-figure business opportunity. So you have to think bigger than just writing a chapter in a book. You have to think bigger than just writing a book and being an author. You have to think about your book as the start of your relationship with your clients, with your potential business people, opportunities to be an entrepreneur and create something special out of it, and also a network of a family. That's the thing that we really pride ourselves in is everyone that writes with us, we keep in contact with, we know what they're doing, and it's like a big family that continues to grow. So we're extremely excited. We have events that we celebrate all of this, and everybody's always enjoying and continuing to collaborate together. And you want to think of your book as a suite of products and services. It's not just a physical book that you have that's sitting on your shelf, like I said. So here are the things that I want you really to think about. This is the return on your investment. You know, when we spend money, we always think that, you know, oh my gosh, it's so much money. I don't know that I can afford that. Remember, we have a payment plan, so it's not that much on a monthly basis. We have a year almost to do it in. So you've got time and you have money to invest in yourself, and it's tax deductible. But here's what you're going to get. If you really want to make this happen and you really are invested in your future, there's an opportunity for the first year, return on that $3,000 that you spend tonight of over $100,000. And here's the way to do that. So you're going to spend the $3,000 to get in our program tonight. Your direct book sales at 85%, only if you sell 100 books, that's $1,300. You're also, and Grace is going to talk a little bit about this in a few minutes, you're also going to be able to be a speaker. You know, you are going to get invited because now remember, you're the expert in your field and you have the niche market and what you know best. So just if you do 2 speaking engagements annually, and Grace will tell you, you can get up to $2,500 a speaking engagement. That's $5,000 the first year. Mastermind group coaching, you know, again, what you know is important. What you know is special. People want to know what you do. So if you do 2 annually and you have $297 a person with 10 people, that's almost $6,000. One-on-one coaching clients, because now you're getting to be an expert in your field. And like Alejandra, people are going to want to come to you and say, how do you do that? How did you do that? 8-session package, 2 months, you know, 2 times a month, $96,000. A membership program. So now you're the expert. People are going to want to know what you know on your blogs every single month. They're going to put a subscription rate in there, $11,000 with just 10 new people monthly, with a subtotal of $120,000 minus the $3,000, over $100,000 a year. You can't beat that if you put the effort in. If you look at your book as not just a book that's sitting on your shelf. So, with that being said, I hope that that gets your brain moving and you're thinking really about the future and what you have to offer. So now I'm going to turn it over to Nisi Johnson, who is a screenwriter, a producer, one of our literary agents, fortunately, and she's also on our elite advisory board. So she's going to be talking to you about how you can go from book to film. And so this is exciting stuff here, guys. So Nisi, welcome.
Thank you, Wendy. That was amazing. I actually learned a lot from you as well as from Jess. I didn't know that Jess actually was dyslexic. So I'm learning tonight as well. And so one thing I wanted to mention is sometimes you think about your skill set, right? And you do that assessment and you say, I don't really have any skills. Well, we all have skills. And did you know that joy, like teaching someone to be happy, is a skill? Teaching someone to come out of pain is a skill. So one of the things that you do with your story, especially if you've been through trauma, pain, breakups, you got out of that, right? And there's someone that will read your story and want to know, how did you get out of that? So that leads me to the first thing that I want to talk about, right? So when you think about writing from film and you're writing your story now, what a director will do is they will take your book and they want to be able to take that book and visualize your story, right? So one of the things that you want to make sure you do is you're going to incite or evoke questions, right? You want to make sure that you're answering those questions. And you also want to make sure that as you're answering those questions, that it's clear, right? One of the things that I like to do is start with an outline, and that outline is very simple. I write down who, what, when, where, and I write down why, right? And you may want to add how. But those are some of the questions that will be in your story. So if I had a story and the title was The Man with the Red Shoe, you would look at that title, and the question from my reader is, why is that significant? Why is the red shoe significant? So you want to make sure that you're addressing that in your story. So when you are talking about the who and you're writing your own story, that typically is going to be you. When you're writing your story for your reader, you want to make sure that you're connecting to the reader. You want to make sure that when they're reading your story, that they visualize who you are as a person. And they do that in a number of ways. They do that in a description of how your description of yourself, your physical characteristics, how you handle emotions, even just, if you're quirky, if you're a happy person, if you're a sad person. And you want to make sure that when you're describing those characteristics, that you don't have one note throughout the story. So if your story, the goal is for you to be, or you want the reader to be optimistic, and that's what you want them to take from the story, you want to make sure that you tell them how you got to be that way. So your story considers emotion, and your emotions go through ebbs and flows. You're not one way throughout your life, and that's just real, right? So when we talk about our stories and the events that we've gone through, we talk about how we were before that event, how you are during that event, and then your process of coming out of that event. So I just want to make sure that when you're writing for film, that you consider your emotions, the ebbs and flows. It's not one note throughout. That when you're actually talking about your characters, whether it be you or another person that you consider an antagonist, that you also describe that person. So you're creating that visual moment for your reader. So for example, if I'm talking about a story of my parents and how they raised me, and I felt like it was in a negative way, sometimes you may not want to paint your parents in a negative way. So you want to balance that out by saying, yes, I had birthday parties every year, but this bad thing also happened, right? So make sure that as you're painting your characters, you're understanding what you want the reader to take from it. And then especially if you want that to go to film, how do you want your viewers to see that character? The other thing is, like I said, physical characteristics. If I'm talking about, a romantic union, make sure that you're describing that love interest. Were they tall? Were they dark? Were they handsome? Do they wear black suits? Just give them something that they can visualize that particular character. The other important thing that you want to consider is the setting. It's very important that when you talk about a specific event, that you're setting the location of where that event happened. So if I'm talking about a birthday party and my story is about divorce in my family, I'm going to talk about the birthday party, where it was. Maybe I had the birthday party with my mother, right? But I was sad, so I'm talking about emotion because my father wasn't there. But I'm establishing that it was at my mom's home, and I'm also establishing that I'm unhappy because my father wasn't there. So just make sure that you're establishing location and also time frame. Make sure it's clear as you go through your story. If you're talking about your childhood and you're going to adulthood, make sure you're clear in that as well. So I think that is that's one of the questions that I typically get a lot based on my background, is how do you translate from book to film? And I think if you keep those tips in mind and that's half the battle. And so now I want to introduce another very, very dear, sweet person who's going to actually talk to you about some other extension models. So when you write your book, right, we talked about platform and what you want to do with your book, not just selling your book. It is not just a business card. Well, we have here Grace Holden, who is 3 times actually a multi-international best-selling author. And she also is an award-winning speaker. So I want to introduce to you, Grace. Take it away.
Oh my goodness, Nisi. I was like, this is getting real juicy. You know, exactly how can I turn my story into a movie? It's on and popping. So I am super excited to have heard that and to have heard from everyone. But you know, before I really dive in, I want to take a minute to acknowledge what is going on out there in our participants' mind. And so many of you are just running through your mind, how am I going to do this? We're in the middle of COVID. You don't understand what's going on in my life, or I just don't know. And I want to reiterate everything that's already been said before. And before I reiterate it, I want to talk about the first time I wrote with Elite. And Jessica and Wendy can attest to this, because I was like, I don't know how I'm going to pay for this. I don't know what I'm going to do. I need scholarship. Like, we're going to have to work something out. And out of that, I realized through that process, and I'll turn off my letter, I wrote an Invincible first. And I believe through this process that Invincible wasn't just the word, it was an action, right? Because when you have a story to tell, we believe in you, not because we want you to buy this, because that's totally not it. We know you should do this. We believe in you because we've been there and we've been through it. I mean, I grew up as a little girl and I thought I just had an ordinary little life, right? I thought that in my world, things were normal. I went through some major traumas by the age of 20. So I didn't know that there was so much more outside of my world until I grew up. I would have never known that writing was a way of healing. So I just want all of you who are out there having this thought in your mind that you can't do this, you can. You just need us and the blueprint, right? So I want to just share with you, you know, I think it's so important to talk about how to monetize your story. And you saw the numbers, 117,000 is just the tip of the iceberg. I think that was very conservative. But I want you to understand that you are intended to do this. You're not here by mistake or happenstance or just by chance. And there really are no coincidences. You saw something, you were interested, and you know way down deep in your belly that you have a story. So let's talk about monetizing that story and how to get from concept to paper to publish. So yeah, I'm the monetized money girl. How you're going to take your story to the bank. So let's go to the next slide. So that's a little bit of information about me. I think that you kind of learned some of that earlier just from Nisi. Thank you, Nisi. I feel like I was on the Oscar Award or something really great, grand, you know, that's filmmaker in you. And so, but take a look at that. I do have a speakers agency, Real Champions League, with people who are on there just like you, who are telling their stories. So let's go on to the next thing. So this section is all about monetizing your story. Before we move to that next slide, I wanted you to think about, okay, go back one slide, Jess. Why is monetizing your story so important? Well, not just because it's an investment, because it is a business. And Wendy earlier said this. She said this is a 6-figure business opportunity. So if you think about that for a minute, you are not just a person who's authoring a book and just an author. There's so much more to your authorship, and that is your entrepreneurship, your leadership, your compassion, your story, all the things that you bring to the table. How many times have someone told you, you should be an author? You should write that down, right? So that's what it's really about. And you can take that and monetize it because it is a six-figure business. That's what I have done, literally. So in this case, there are some ways to do it. We're going to talk through them, and that is our next slide. And the way to do it is your story. What are you bringing to the table? See, when you go through this concept from concept to paper to publish with Elite, we literally walk you through each and every step of the process. You will not fall into the pitfalls like everyone else who have written stories. You will not find yourself on the wayside because we will not let you. You are going to be able to tell your story and be able to bring your story to the table without worrying about all the other pieces. That is like, I'm cheering for you for that reason. Because when I wrote my first book, Dirty, I didn't have a team of elite professionals helping me write this story. It made it did good, but the work that I had to do to get there, and it definitely was not 90 days, let me tell you that. So this is what you bring to the table, is your story. And with that, the next thing is we want to talk about what it is that this is all about. So, you know, being an author is there's a lot to it, and it is simple as it is, as much life-saving as it is. So you are problem solving, you are telling your stories to audiences in writing, and then eventually they're going to come beat down your door because they're going to want you to tell the story to solve a problem to their audiences, right? So having a bestseller book or an international bestseller book gives you a lot of authority, and I just want to remind you of that. So now that you got that in your mind, you'll see why this turns into the six-figure business that Wendy brought up earlier, the $117,000 in revenue, the speaking opportunities, and we went real light on the numbers, and your ability to be able to do each and every one of these things. So let's talk about each one of these. So let us count the ways to get engagements from your story. And one of them is you publish a book. Your story turns into a published book. That is what you are going to sign up for today. So that's pretty darn amazing that your story becomes a book, and it is not a business card. It is a life-changing tool and vessel for somebody. You will also get to host many virtual book events, and not because we're in this season right now of what's happening in the world with the pandemic, it's because virtual book events are smart. You do so well with those. You could do them all over the world. So that is another way to get any type of monetization for your book. The next thing you get to do is build an online presence. And some authors have built such an incredible online presence, they're getting paid, and they're able to use their book and their story and their influencer, right, ship, if that's a word, they're able to use that to get paid to share their story. Another way that we do at Elite, and when we collaborate, is we create partnerships, not just with Elite, but with the many other authors who have so much in their background and so many people that you can connect to. So the partnerships and collaborations are limitless. So that's another huge way. And when you do that, so let's say Alejandra and Nisi and I, we all want to go on tour together. And because of that, now the cost to do that, we split that 3 ways, or through our resources, we didn't have to pay anything possibly. All of us are not competing against one another, but we are completing one another. And we're able then to share our story and monetize all of our messages and split that. So that is a collaboration and a partnership. The next thing is network and volunteer. Now, why do I have those two together? Because I ran out of space on the PowerPoint. So I wanted all of this. So I am funny as all get out, but networking is super huge. And as you do, and you have something, I remember I was in the room with TD Jakes, and he's a big time speaker here in US. And I was in the room with him, and I was telling him all these wonderful things that I wanted to do, and I wanted to write and all this and that. And he said, hold on, in his TD Jakes voice, hold on, sister. He said that you want to write, but because you haven't written, you really don't have anything to share with me. And I thought for a minute, I can share my story. And he's like, because you haven't fulfilled your dream. And I was like, oh, okay. So the next time I saw him a year later, guess what I had in my hand? A book. So write your story, fulfill your passion and your dream. Don't let anything stop you, not even this season. So you will network and you will have that with you, not just something that you think you want to say, but you'll have it written. And you will also get volunteer opportunities. Now, let me tell you why volunteer opportunities lead to monetization. Trust me on this. When you volunteer, like for me, I can volunteer at human trafficking organizations. I can volunteer at domestic violence organizations. These are all things that have happened to me. I can volunteer at bullying organizations. And because I give value, they call me back to speak. And many of them for $3,500, $5,000, $10,000 to speak before their audiences. So volunteering and giving value is an incredible way to get engagements from your story. emceeing. Let me go back to the volunteer. There's a lady that I've met. Her name is Jamie, and she had recently went through domestic violence and went to, I'm here in Houston, the Human Women's Network. And through that, in 6 months, she's made $100,000+ after being severely abused. But because she was willing to share her story, the mayor has already given her an award. She's all over different platforms because her story has helped so many thousands of women in this city. So just know your story matters. We need you. You can MC, you can moderate, you can have workshops, and you could do so much more with your story. And all of those things, you can actually receive compensation. So at Real Champions League Speakers Agency, that is one of the things we do, is we help you filter through all. You saw that slide that Wendy had up and you looked at all those numbers. We help you have a plan for your speaking from your authorship. And you don't have to have a book, obviously, to speak, but it is definitely going to get you in the door a lot sooner than not. So it's real important to understand that you can monetize your story in multiple ways. This is not just a one-way, write your book, sell a few copies, and hope to get your money back, because that's not the only way. I have sold so many copies of all of my books that I'm literally always ordering more. So I want you to know that you can do this. You will need to do this in order to fulfill that passion that you have for getting your story out. And the next slide. So are you ready to get published with Elite today? I have twice, with Invincible and Overcomer. And so just so you know, this is the real deal. This is a very professional team, and we are here to walk with you every step of the way. I have friends and people I know who have done these type of projects for $10,000 and up, maybe 5,000, but it's not been quite that excellent, right? So just know this is a really great organization to participate, to be a part of, and to write your story. So with that, you are graced to overcome. You can go check out my website and figure out other ways to get your voice on the platform. That's all I have.
Everyone, thank you so much. So we would love to hear if you have any questions that you would like the team to answer. And I'm going to put everybody on gallery view so everyone can be on screen. So you want to go ahead and unmute yourselves. And we're going to take questions from the audience so that we can try to address as many as possible within the time that we have left on this call. So you can go ahead and just put whatever. I've seen the chat's been going and going and going and going and going. So I would love to know if there's anything in particular that you have any questions about, any of the content that has been shared with you, just to reiterate some of the key highlights. Elite Publisher is a non-for-profit. Your fees are completely tax deductible. And because we're nonprofit, cost is never going to be an obstacle. We want you to be able to do what you need to do. We're going to find ways in order to be creative, to get you to be able to fulfill your dream within 2021, because 2020 is almost done and we have had a woozy of a year this year. But it is time to end it strong. It is time to realize and step up and be resilient for 21 to set the pace for what is to come. Because I, for one, believe that in 2021, we're going to have amazing breakthroughs. We're going to have amazing pivots and changes in our market and our world. It's going to look very, very different, but I don't think different is necessarily bad. I think different and chaos create tremendous opportunity.
Julius, can you hear us?
I can hear you guys. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
And can you see me?
No, we see your name.
I see. I don't know what I need to do for you to see me.
Put your camera on. Do you have a little
Camera. Let's see.
Start video.
At the bottom
I'm
left.
sorry?
Bottom left. If you hover.
Bottom left. I just see mute, chat.
That's okay. Just go ahead. We see your name,
Okay.
so we know it's you.
Sorry. Yeah, my question is, I'm already through with my manuscript. It's about 140,000 words. And I understand I'll be able to do about 2,500 words here. So I just want to know, how would I set this up? I mean, do I pretty much condense the entire book into 2,500 words, or basically I'm just setting things up for people to purchase my long book?
Hi, Julius. It's nice to see you join us.
Yes.
So yes, and no, right? So as I think someone mentioned on the call, you'd want to take a portion of your story, or I should say the cliff notes of your story, but you want to leave enough if you intend to actually write the full book. So again, you want to leave something. Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
A teaser.
A teaser, yes.
Did that answer your question?
Yeah, I guess so. So basically, I'm just going to kind of like the whole thing is going to be a teaser, pretty much the entire 2,500 words, so to speak.
So let me give you an example, Julius. One of the first writers that came to our indie publisher had a 300,000 word manuscript.
Okay.
And what we did basically, because I think you and I had a lengthy conversation, if I recall correctly.
That's right. That's right.
The average attention span of a human being today is unfortunately no longer than a goldfish, right? And
That's
so
right.
the average marketable book today in the industry is about 40,000 words. If you want to be able to transition a book from your current content, we had talked about the fact that you likely would want to break it up into a series. And so
That's
the
right.
supportive book program would give you an opportunity to do the first entry point to this series. And you would structure that chapter so that people would know that they are going to engage with you through this chapter, get an overview, right? An overview of what the series is going to be about. You're going to teach them a particular strategy that's going to hook them to then be ready to receive the rest of your series.
Okay.
Wendy and Jessica, I saw something in the chat that I thought would be really good to share. And I think someone said that they already had written a couple of books. I think that's a really important, even though it wasn't a question, to turn it into a question. So should I do this if I've written a couple of books prior? Absolutely. If you are not getting the results that we have just shared with you on this, you absolutely should. I had a book first before I got here, but that book didn't make me over $100,000. I went through this process twice, and that's what did it for me. As a matter of fact, I just soared after Overcomer. So did you notice I had a link called Grace to Overcome? I just took that and went with it, because then I was getting into the 50,000, 60,000, 70,000, 80,000, 90. I was growing through it. So yes, if you've already written a couple of books, you need the reason why this is so important, because there's a team, a process, a blueprint. And not only is there that, you become an international bestseller or a bestseller in multiple categories. Now you have leverage that you didn't have with your own self-published book. Because if so, and we could really talk about this part of it, the monetization would show and demonstrated it already from those books.
Great point, Grace. You know, because again, like I said, you can write a book and it can sit on your shelf and nothing happens with it, but you've accomplished something that 3%, only 3% of the people have done. So where do you go from there? And I think that's what we do to take you to the next step and all those things that we talked about. And we can help you through that.
And I believe Jamie had a question about how often do they have to meet with a coach if they want to write within 3 months. Well, I'll give you an example. Like, I had a story, but I didn't know even where to start. You know, so I got to be very thankful that this team can walk you through from the beginning to the end. That's why I consider them my family, because I will call them every 5 minutes. Jessica, wait, like, what do I do again? Like, so this is the important part, that we're going to be holding your hand and guide you all the way through. So whether you have 20,000 questions, whether you want to do it in a certain way, I mean, we're going to be with you all the way.
Yeah, and the program has a structure and triggers of accountability. So you will have 3 structured coaching calls that will get you started. But even before that, from the moment you sign up, you're going to start receiving our 5 digital steps that I went through, the 5 steps to success, with very particular activities to draw out the content from your concept in your mind, idea in your mind, onto paper. And then we start as a cohort, and the cohort starts together, and we meet for 3 group coaching calls that are all fundamental and structural. And we teach you our particular style of structuring and framing your content so that it can become a monetized suite of goods and services and products. But the issue is that, as Alejandra said, that is the structure of the program. In between there, your literary agent is accessible to you by email, by phone, on our Facebook page. We have constant Q&A in the Facebook page. There's over 600 writers who are in our community right now that collaborate and work with you in trying to support you when you hit a minefield and you can't quite get yourself out of a block. And your literary agent is solely assigned to you to be one-to-one with you from the beginning to the end. Your heavy lift is those first 30 days. After those 30 days, we leave you for a couple of weeks to complete your actual writing process. You come back, and then the foundation takes care of all of the logistics, which is the heavy lift that no writer ever wants to deal with, which is the marketing and the positioning and the creation of the book. Do we have any other great questions in the feed? I'm seeing it roaring, but I can't read that fast. It's moving too quick.
I think Angela was asking, you know, she's already written books, and her main question is marketing.
So that's where I give those, how do we monetize your story? Let us count the ways. Because marketing your book, even if you go with another like big publishing company, and Dr. Jessica can attest to this, unless it's Michelle Obama's book Becoming, they are not marketing typically for you. You are marketing yourself. So the marketing really is yourself. It's really you. And you can do that without having so much investment up front through those different ways that I was sharing with you. And a lot of that is you getting together with those who really love you, and you're doing those virtual book tours, and you're asking them to be ambassadors in certain cities, and you start there. Then you collect enough money from you selling your book. I think when I first did it at the shoot, I was like $2,200. And I cherished my $2,200 with all those book sales. And I made sure that I repurposed it back so that I could continue. So then that's how you move on to those next things that Wendy shared, or the ones that I shared. So now you got, you know, a few dollars, and you can turn it around and get yourself out there networking, meeting more people, and getting to the decision makers to get you going. So book sales is one way to monetize your story, but it is not the only way.
Things like we are, but that is the key to everything else that Grace is talking about, and that Nisa is talking about, and that Alejandra is talking about, and all of us are kind of like saying it's more than just the book.
Yeah, I make most of my money from masterminds and coaching. Coaching is mostly where most of mine come from, the authority in the field, but also mastermind. So that's where most of it comes from, and then speaking. All of those, I guess. But that's really, you have to think outside of the box of that book. Let's just consider this is just what opens the door.
I think, Angela has some other questions around doing free events, free speaking engagements. And even though you might not get paid, right? Because right now, like Grace is saying, they're international bestsellers, right? That does carry weight to it. I also want to say the beauty of the collaborative program, and I keep putting that in the chat as well, that it's that village approach. Mm-hmm. You're not doing it by yourself. You have other authors along with you. Partner up with other authors to help you through this. If another author is getting traction in another area, you can partner with that person. And then I want to go back to your comment as far as being paid for your work, because that is your work. And as they're saying on the call as well, is that, you are what you're selling, right? So your story represents you, and it is worth something. So if you're not getting paid to speak, you should be leveraging your books. And are you negotiating? So there's strategy, and all of those things come along with the program, and that's where those fees come in handy, because the strategy as far as, yes, I have a book, that won't go to waste once you do the collaborative program. Now you have something else. You have something, you sell the collaborative book, and now you have a second book, and I also have this book. Now you have two things as a part of your platform. One does not negate the other. So I would say from a collaborative approach, just make sure that you're using the village, use the community, and make sure that you're using the tools that you're going to learn as part of this program, which is the strategy that you do not learn when you're doing it on your own. And as you can tell, it is tough trying to do it on your own.
It is.
What makes this program very good.
There's no such thing as a free speaking engagement. Like, I am literally the master of this. There is no such thing, even if you're doing it complimentary. And here's a nugget. You still send an invoice that it is complimentary. Isn't that right, Dr. Jessica? I do this all the time. And you will still get a $2,500 invoice that says complimentary. But what we're going to do, and Nisi says, we're going to negotiate my next speaking engagements, relationships that you will introduce me to, and books, because I'm going to ask you, what is your education budget? And those books will then go into a different pocket, because they may say, I don't have any money for a speaker, but they have money for other things. So you want to join this team. We got some good information over here.
Be mindful of time. We've got a few more minutes, and we definitely want to be available to answer any other questions you might have. But as I promised, if you stay to the end and you complete the survey, which is really important to us, because obviously, yes, we love what we do, and yes, we are trying to transfer wisdom and knowledge, but the most important way to show appreciation is to demonstrate that you gained the knowledge. So we're going to be sending out a survey. I'm going to launch it, and if you would do us the great honor and privilege of completing the survey for us, and for doing so, it will notify us that you did, and we will send you a coupon to be able to gain access to our full digital do-it-yourself publishing toolkit that will put you in a sequence, so that even though, Angela, you may be thinking you do not have the dollars, right? I'm going to tell you that in order to be able to manifest what you're looking for, you have to invest. Whether it's investing time, gifts, or talents, you're going to invest, and what you invest, you're going to get tenfold. So,
Rosa, I believe Rosa was the first one to sign up, so she did get the gift.
all right.
Oh, nice.
Hey,
Welcome, Rosa.
congratulations, Rosa.
on behalf of myself and the entire team at Elite Publishing, thank you so much for taking the evening and joining us for this webinar. We hope that you gained some golden nuggets and that you learned a little bit more about the traditional publishing industry and how it is evolving, and so quickly so, and how you can really leverage that story, which we believe is the key to your success. And so without further ado, I'd love to say good night. Be well, have peace and joy, and may you have an amazing, amazing, beautiful holiday season. Thank you so much for joining us.